Hey, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining me for a conversation with Liyana today. My name is Shur-Wilson, and I am the Career Navigation Program Specialist for Women Who Code. And I'm thrilled to welcome Liyana today. So Liyana, can you tell us where you are currently, where you're from, and what your job is right now?
Hi Anna, thank you so much for having me today. So basically, I was born in India, but my family and I migrated to Malaysia when I was like 2 years old. So I've been ever since living in Malaysia, and I grew up here. And currently, I'm working as a web developer at Forest Interactive. It's an IT company in KL.
Oh, great. Yeah, we also have a Women Who Code network in Kuala Lumpur, so they're going to be very excited. We will share the conversation with them. So we invited you to talk a little bit today about getting your first job and transitioning from being a student to working. So could you share a little bit about your career journey and what attracted you to coding and being a web developer?
Sure. So as for my career journey, my family were very supportive and they didn't really push me into a specific path. As my family members were of different educational backgrounds. We had engineers, we had environmental sciences, accounting, IT. So they gave me the space and encouraged me to choose my career path. So my interest in coding actually started during my high school days because we had these IT lessons where we learned basic HTML and CSS. So and every time I attended the class, I used to get really excited, and just because of that, I wanted to look further into what other programming languages are there. So during like my school holidays, I would take up some online courses and to learn more about Java, C++, and Python. I just explored and I found it really fun because, I could build anything that I want with just, coding. And that kind of intrigued me into this field. And also, I still remember the very first coding that I did online. It was like a Plants versus Zombies game where I had to like drag and drop the code snippet. So, it was quite fun for me. But even though I had this interest, after my high school graduation, I was pretty indecisive of my career path because I was like, is this programming just gonna be my hobby, or should I just take it up as my career? So I kept my options open, and I kept learning other courses that interested me. But since I always had an interest for programming, I took up some other programming courses online, and I felt this would, I would be really happy in this course. So I decided to take up a course on computer science in mobile computing, and I mainly chose this course because it was very new, and I was so fascinated I was fascinated and excited that I could build mobile apps and games and anything that I want. And this course mainly taught us how to develop and design for Android, iOS, and for web apps. So I was really happy that I chose this path, and throughout my course I was really enjoying it and learning a lot. So, and also as an introvert, I find comfort working behind the screen, and coding is a perfect solution for that.
Yes, we have talked a lot about that. So after you were studying, I'm wondering, when you were looking for your first job, what were some things that were challenging or some unforeseen challenges that you didn't expect when you transitioned into trying to look for full-time work?
Yeah, well, when applying for a job, I only started looking for a job seriously after my master's degree, as I was kind of concerned that it would be difficult to get a job as a fresh grad, and I felt that I needed to perfect my knowledge, and because the competition in this field was quite high. And it was not just what we learned in the university, but we'd have to have our own other skill sets on other languages. So yeah, my path to getting my first job was pretty challenging, yet it was exciting in a way. Well, searching for a job during the pandemic itself was challenging because I could not really go and meet anyone in real life. All the interviews were done online, and not just that, there were not many openings, and even if there were, they were prioritizing and only allowing only allowing people with experience, and they were not really looking for fresh grads.
Mhm.
So when applying for jobs, I had prepared like a one-page resume and a cover letter stating my skills and my area of interest. And I just started applying to all the companies. And even if they didn't have any openings, I would just share. So these are my skill sets and this is my area of interest. Is there any suitable position, that you can take me for? So this went on for like a month. So after applying for a month to many companies, I was called for like a few of them for interview. It was all held online, and I realized that each company that I attended the interview with, they had a different approach, like a completely different approach. So like one of the company, they just gave like a bunch of quizzes and maths questions and programming problems. So we were all in a Zoom call where we have to like solve them without having to talk with the interviewee. So we just have to solve them, and who submits the earliest would be accepted. And then another company kind of like just email us like a list of requirements to build a mobile app within 3 days and just submit the code. And after we submitted the code, they didn't really get back. and
Oh.
and then came Forest Interactive,
Mhm.
where I went through a personality quiz, a personality assessment first, and then followed by 3 interviews with the team leads, and then with the CEO himself, and then the HR. So I felt like this company values a person for who they are and not only for the skills that's written on the paper. Overall, like they judge me based on my overall knowledge and as me as a person. So yeah, and also the regrets that I have for like not applying for a job earlier is that I wish I had tried harder and applied for more jobs right after my bachelor's degree. And the mistake I made was I thought that I have to like perfect my knowledge and I have to really, really know in depth, and so that I would be able to survive. But once I started my job, I realized that in this field you're just going to be keep learning new things, and
Yes.
you can never be you can never be prepared 100%.
Yes, that's what
So
we
that's
want
what
all of our members to know. I'm sorry.
that's all right. So yeah, I wish I hadn't been so harsh on myself,
Mhm.
even though getting a job in this field can be pretty competitive. But you have to stay up to date with the recent technologies, and you have to sharpen your skills. But you don't have to perfect it. You can just go ahead. You will learn throughout your job.
Absolutely. And then every boss that you're going to have is going to be different with different preferences with how you code. Like you can't be perfect. So I love that advice. I'm so glad that you shared that. And that connects really nicely to something that we've talked about in the past when we've spoken before, which is how to train yourself to think like a programmer and have creative solutions to problems. Because I think one of the biggest differences between school and work is that at school, often, depending on what school you go to, they really tell you what to do, and the professor gives you their idea of the best way to solve the problem. But that's not necessarily what it's like to work in this field. So, what does think like a programmer mean to you?
Well, that's very true. You know, what we learn in school is completely different from how we experience at work. So thinking like a programmer for me is basically like thinking in a problem-solving manner. And I was taught by one of my mentors to train your thoughts. Whenever you look at anything or even your daily life activities, think of it as a flow chart with the process and if and else, you know, to train your thoughts on how you would go with any problems. So there's actually there's a common steps in solving a programming problem where we at first if we try to understand the problem, like try to read and understand what is the problem about, and then we devise a plan. Okay, how are we going to face this problem? How are we going to solve this problem? Once we have the plan devised, we would carry out the plan. The thing is, when carrying out the plan, you will just try to find code online that you know you can that's been already there, but just try to don't perfect the code, just carry out the plan and then test it. If that solution doesn't work, try another. If that too doesn't work, keep trying, but don't blindly try to read carefully and check where you're going wrong. And this kind of brings us to the next step, like the things to check when solving a problem or an error that you get. So the first thing that I would do is I would search for the error. I would look up the error, and I'm pretty sure in most cases someone would have already faced a similar or the exact issue, and I can learn from them where I went wrong or where's the mistake that I made, and which solution worked for them. And also when looking for solutions, I would suggest that you can check for the date when it was posted and for which version. Don't just blindly copy paste and try. And also if you're on Stack Overflow, check how many upvotes it got and read the comments clearly. Like just don't copy paste and test. Even though copy pasting sometimes works, but you will not learn anything and you might repeat the same mistake. So, and also I would say there are a few key points that you can ensure. Like you should test your code on few platforms and devices, because I made one of the mistakes where I built an app and I was so sad and down because it did not work when I tested it on a phone. And then I came to realize that actually the app that I built was not compatible with the phone, but actually my app, the code was working. So I wasted a lot of time on that. So it's best if you test your code on a few platforms, and not just that, you should write comments for your codes which are easily understandable even for yourself in the future. And also I would say try to simplify your code, but you don't have to perfect it. At first when you're writing your code, just go ahead and write it. Then slowly you can perfect it. And also I would say one of the important thing is, this was not taught for us in school, and I really think it should be taught, is about the GitHub, the GitLab, the version control system. It's highly helpful and it helps you keep track of the changes you made rather than having to lose your code.
Yes, yeah.
So I feel like this should be taught in universities and all. Like Git is really important. Even if it's not taught, you can learn it online. Everything is available online. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thanks so much. You have given so much good advice. I feel so excited to share it with our community. Are there any, for your last word, if you could give one piece of advice to someone who had just failed an interview, what's your final piece of advice?
Well, for failing an interview, I mean, I've failed in so many interviews before. That doesn't really tell you who you are as a person. An interview, they are looking for what they're looking for, and who you are and your skill sets don't necessarily have to match all the time, and it's fine if you fail, because you'll always try harder the next time, right? And also another advice I would say is don't be don't be so harsh on yourself. You're gonna be always learning more in this industry. There's always something new coming up, and you don't have to like perfect your knowledge. That's that's really, I would say. And even if you know a bit of coding, you can always learn it online. Because even if you're at work, you won't know the solution for every problem. You're gonna look it up. You're gonna learn about it. So there's no such thing as 100% you're ready for a job. You just go ahead, and it's completely fine failing an interview.
Yes,
It doesn't judge who you are.
I completely agree. I completely agree.